Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 7th of May, and well, it was just a beautiful Friday. I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot to do. We started off with a little bit of softness that was immediately turned around after the initial open and moved straight higher. So literally there was not a whole lot intraday to do, because once the shift was made to the upside, and literally all we did was we came right to the 23% line right here and pretty much propelled right off of it. So that was 26.12.25. Now you'll recall previously from back over here, the 23% was at the 26.16.50. So it had slightly decreased a little bit more from over here, and boom, came right to that and moved over the 38 and just under the 50%. You can see we had the full resets. We still have green over red, so it's been maintaining this nice move. And as long as the orange is continuing lower, you should expect higher. But as soon as it pivots up, we're probably going to see a little bit of weakness. You can see the steel now moving above 13.5 here, which is the equivalent of it coming up from underneath, which will also support the move a little bit. Now we still have a dip below the red line from the extreme down here, so despite the fact that this may come up, we're likely to revisit that in the future. So that's something worth pointing out. You can see how much stronger the NQ is, which is the NASDAQ here. It was already above the 23 and moved above the 38, and when it got above the 38, it propelled itself higher. This also corresponds now to the new ABM reset that took place from the GAM signal right there. And once it closed over the 50%, obviously that's strong. So again, easy for the NQ as well, because the 50% line at the 67.60 here becomes your turnaround point. Pretty straightforward. And despite this decline in the euro, which something that we've expected for quite some time, had been held artificially high when the market was in that turbulent weakness, and now that the things have stabilized, there's no need to prop it up any longer, and sure enough, heading lower, and we still expect it to get below the 116 range, which would be the normal 113, 116 range that we talked about, that we had for the longest time. Actually, we had to shrink the chart in order to show this. The baseline of it right there was the breakout, and that was right at that 116. So getting there. It's been a beautiful signal from the DOC spread that happened. And if we talk about the little snake, which is where you have orange rising above steel, and then the tongue of the snake becomes that cyan, gets right in the middle there, and literally you can follow that until well, in this particular case, green moving over cyan at this particular point, but as long as that orange continues to stay in the middle. The interesting part is the steel outside of the range could get a little back and forth, but this has been the real key. As long as you see those magenta, purple, whichever color you want to refer to it as, below that negative 60 line, that is full distribution. People are fleeing. Yeah, I shouldn't say people, it's central governments that make that happen, so let's not kid ourselves. Treasury is also very well inflated for no good reason. That should be moving much lower, especially as rates rise. The weakness in the GDP numbers in that were reflective of why that hasn't decayed further. Turning to oil, back up at the peaks, and of course that could even grow further if the production cuts that both Saudi Arabia and Russia have talked about, but more likely it's tensions with Iran could escalate that. And the fact, like I've discussed, is that even with the increase in supply, if you have significant growth, and this is an indication that there's still plenty of growth out there, because without growth you wouldn't have the consumption need. And that really is going to be the driver of the situation, and that should cause gold to continue to climb. It had, been a nice little distribution, a lot of little accumulation taking place at this particular point, and didn't get the strong move of the orange dip below, but it was enough to give it a little bit of support right there. Whoops. went one too far. We need to have this chart up. So this was the 5K. So we started off with this little drop here. Oh, and what you're seeing on here is a little short program that was working with basically what it does is it finds that orange cyan split and shorts it until it gets a crossover of the green and cyan. So it looks for that. And this particular one, I think, was utilizing the orange moving below green as the catalyst turnover point, but still just playing with that one, because what happens is when you get the cyan under red, you have an inverse relationship, because where falling is bullish, this becomes bullish rising when you have the cyan below. So that's the effect of the radial nature of this indicator that can only be displayed here in the little 2D. It doesn't quite show it. You can see it took a similar situation right here and followed it through, because it has to have at least the magenta below that 15 line, and that shows kind of why. Could have reacted much earlier, but if you take advantage of these, what happens is you tend to get extended plays, because you can see it happens quite a bit throughout, and you would miss the broader long runs. So always interesting to see that. We can see in pre-market here, we've had the complete reset of the shakeout and starting a new run, higher highs, but with the reset, not a problem. But there just wasn't anything to do with this, though, because once you got over the 50%, and if you follow this with ABM, she didn't break any of it until right over here for this little brief stint, and then that reset and created a brand new cyan under red, and that's what's led to the most recent move. So we'll keep at it. I think still we have a little bit of bullish tendencies, and of course, I can always go back to this is the 4th of the month, and that usual fund application, and I talked about it at the, go back to the video from the beginning of the week. I said, you gotta wait till the end of the week when the new fund money comes in, that would be the opportunity, and they saw a great discounted price and they took advantage of it. Sounds like such a simple thing, but when you've got all that money and they saw the great discount of price, it was a perfect opportunity for them to start buying into it, and that's exactly what they did. As always, though, I sent out the Morganacci lines on functions earlier, and so now most of the components for all the indicators in the form of functions, allowing for individuals who want to get involved in doing some individual programming and things like that, the opportunity to do so. And as soon as I finish the last elements of these adjustments within the paint bar, that will be added as well, and so that should be exciting. As always, trade well. We'll talk again later.